Alright guys, welcome back to my channel. I have not abandoned my shop. So I just been spread a little thin doing a whole bunch of different things. As well, maybe you don't know, but let me just let you know that I do work a 40-hour job. So sometimes that gets busy. I also have a wife and I have 3 daughters. So it kind of makes it a little bit difficult to take on this task of trying to turn myself into some kind of a respectable woodworker. I'm far from that, but I feel like it's a constructive and productive hobby. In the process of me learning about woodworking and just general DIY, I've always been a DIYer. Let me just get that out there. I've always been a DIYer, but it's kind of shifted as of late to doing a lot more woodworking type of projects. Before I chose to do the woodworking, I was actually going to go in the direction of auto mechanics because I already work on some of my own cars, and my plan was to basically just acquire whatever tools I needed to make working on cars a lot easier and a lot more proficient, being a home mechanic. And being that I had a little bit of extra money, I wanted to utilize that money to get myself the I would say whatever tools that I could afford that would make the job easier, so closer to professional as opposed to like someone that maybe worked on a car once a year. That's 2 different levels of investment there. So anyways, I was going to do that, and my plan was to I don't live in a location where I can have a car lot full of cars, and currently we only have 2 automobiles, and we kind of need them. So I didn't want to have a situation where we have one of the cars down while I'm experimenting and learning on the ins and outs of auto mechanics, to master that craft basically. So my plan was to basically gather my tools and then go to this place. It's called Pick and Pull out here in California, and I was going to go there and just find the cars that we already own and just basically go in there and pull parts that I may need down the road, and also get myself familiar with how those cars, how they go together, and really just grow, just learn the car inside out. Well, I ended up going to Pick and Pull, and I remember I had I think I had some name brand tools, maybe some Milwaukee tools or whatever. And at the time I was going, I have a 1991 Saab. So I found this 1991 Saab CD that I was going to, take parts off of. And I get there, and all of a sudden, this gentleman, shows up by this Saab. So, just imagine how many 1991 Saabs you've seen on the road, right? And all of a sudden, he's just hovering around this car that I'm working on, and all he has is a screwdriver. That's it. No other tools. All he has is a screwdriver. So I already know what his game is. He's waiting for me to turn my back so he can basically steal my tools, or steal some of my tools. So of course that day I was unable to really get into removing parts and so on and so forth because I was going by myself. So after that, I kind of came home, thought about it, and I was like, yeah, I can't go down this pathway, at least not in that way. I mean, I don't have an environment where I could actually have, go buy a, second or third car or fourth car, or rather third or fourth car, and, tear them down and be, tinkering on them. So as a result, I abandoned that whole concept of basically turning more towards auto mechanics as opposed to woodworking. So once I kind of, made that shift, I thought about woodworking, and I thought about everything that it entailed. You've got, whether it be furniture building, cabinet making, you could make, I don't know, just all kinds of different things. You could repair things, whether it be like finished carpentry in a home, with construction type carpentry. You can actually build structures, houses, sheds, whatever you need to do, shop furniture. And so basically the lights just started going off, and I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put my efforts into this woodworking thing because it's something that I can do in the garage. And as I gather tools, unless someone comes to my house and robs me, I don't have to worry about being out in public somewhere with, flashy tools and someone basically, basically making my day a bad day. So that's how I kind of moved into this kind of more of a woodworking, I guess you'd say, DIY. I still do the automotive DIY. It's just more so now by necessity. So when I have to do my oil changes, when I have to do my brake changes, I would do more, as I said, if I had space. I mean, my dream shop would be like some huge warehouse where I had an area for auto mechanics with the actual lift, a paint booth where I could paint, cars and repair dents and learn that trade. And then I would have my woodworking area. I would have a machinist shop. I would have, I would just do all of these things. And when I would come home from work, if I lived far enough away from the general public, I would actually just come home and go in that shop and work until I drop, just learning different things. I mean, I just have such varied interests. My wife, she does a little bit of sewing, a little bit of embroidery, and that type of stuff. I'm even interested in those things. When she upgraded her sewing machine, I took her old one and I was in there trying to learn to sew. I just have this desire to want to demystify almost everything that I see, at least to some degree. But anyways, that's just a little bit more about how I got to this point. But right now I want to turn my attention to a particular tool. Well, before I go to the tool, I want to talk about how things have been going in the shop. So there's so many different specialties in this woodworking field. You've got, you got carving, you got turning, you've got, finished carpentry, you've got cabinet building, you got furniture making, and everything in between. You can make toys, whatever. And as I've been gathering my tools, at first I was gathering tools more like a general person, because I was thinking, like, if I could convince my wife to move off grid, then maybe I can get into building my own home. And that's where you would want tools like your DeWalt's, your Milwaukee's, your heavy duty worm drive saws and stuff like that could take that abuse. But have not been successful convincing the wife to move off grid. So, kind of got to table that idea, but I still have a lot of those tools. And, backing up even further, when I first started dabbling into this woodworking thing, I purchased a lot of Ryobi tools. And I don't have anything against Ryobi tools from the standpoint that, if that's what I could afford, and it's going to help me get the job done, I'm totally all about that. Would I like to save money? Of course. I don't want to just spend money for spending money's sake. However, I've had a few Ryobi tools, die on me. Not to say that other brands won't die as well, but the other thing that I've noticed is that when I have a whole assortment of Ryobi tools now that I would love to be able to upgrade. And when I go to like a site like Craigslist or whatever, and I try to consider putting my tools up for sale, that's when I really understand that, for me personally, it's probably, unless you absolutely have to, it's probably not the best thing for me to be, continuing to invest in the Ryobi platform, simply because, not to hate, but simply because if you're not fully satisfied with the Ryobi platform, and I will give an example on that in just a second, if you're not fully satisfied, when you go to resell those tools, right, it's either use them until they die or give them away like a fire sale. And that, for me, that's like poor investment. If I buy a bunch of Ryobi tools and then I decide I want to sell them and I can't get that money back. So right now I have I had a Ryobi leaf vacuum, right, and it was on one of my bench top tables, and it fell off and it hit the ground, and the handle kind of split, and so the actual speed control doesn't work anymore. So I kept it around because I want to try to open it up to see if I can fix it. I haven't done it yet. That's been on the back burner, but that's a 40 volt Ryobi tool, mind you. And I want to say right now, when I looked it up online, for the battery, the tool, and the charger, it's like $229 for that particular tool, right? So let's say I fixed it, right? I'm not going to get $229 from that tool, right? I'm probably not even going to get $150 for that tool. That's with the battery, that's with the charger and everything. I also have the expanded head, the trimmer. I bought the brush cutter, which is the metal head, and then I also have the actual tiller. And you know, I was looking at the prices. So for the actual expanded head trimmer, you're talking about $179 brand new with battery and charger. This is 40 volt. And then the brush trimmer head is $119 by itself, and then the actual tiller bottom, I believe, or tiller head is about $169. So you total that up, that's over $450 worth of equipment. I probably couldn't get $250 for that, you know, just simply, you know, for various reasons. But you know, I asked myself then, do I want to sell that and take that loss when I paid over, you know, without tax, you're talking over $450. With tax, you're talking probably, you know, over $500. So selling it, getting that space back is important. That's valuable. That makes a lot of sense. But, you know, as I said, you know, I find it's frustrating for me when I look at, say, I recently or early last year or something like that, I purchased some used Festool tools, and they held their value pretty well. You know, I've heard of people talking about the Festool Domino and how they would be surprised if they couldn't sell their Domino today for what they paid for it many years ago, because that particular tool holds its value. I purchased a used C18 drill and also the REB 55 track saw used. And you know, I could probably turn around and sell both of those tools for exactly what I paid for them, you know. And that kind of goes to show I have, you know, Ryobi drills, I have Ryobi saws. I actually looked on Craigslist the other day, and there was a Ryobi table saw that I used to own. I actually gave it away to one of my to a coworker, but that saw, somebody was trying to sell it for $100. They're probably not going to get $100 for that saw, period. They're just not. And then I also saw the brand new 40 volt Ryobi table saw. No, it's not 40 volt. It's a 18 volt Ryobi table saw that they came out with. I think it's brand new. It's $399 or something like that, but it was on sale, I want to say, for $299. But you got a person on Craigslist already selling it for $250, and they're probably going to struggle to get that for that tool. Multiple drills, multiple multi-tools, everything's like $10, $15, whatever. For me, that's just not enough money on my initial investment, and that kind of prompts me to want to, you know, keep those tools until they die. Now, on the flip side of that coin, right? When you say, if you use a particular tool and then you get the opportunity to use a better tool, and you see what you're missing, it becomes, you know, more difficult to continue to use the old tool, especially if you happen to be in a position where you could afford to upgrade. It just makes you like, hey, let me go ahead and upgrade. You know, I mean, you're ready to go up on your roof and throw that other tool off the roof, so it just go ahead and meets a early end, so to speak. But anyway, so, you know, it's just you know, one of those things. So, you know, I have zero hate towards a company like Ryobi or towards their tools. I think they're great, you know what I'm saying, entry-level tools. They're great tools for when you need to get something done and you don't want to spend a whole lot of money. However, I do feel like their prices are kind of creeping up a little bit, getting into the realm of, you know, yeah, not worth it. But for the most part, for that entry level, if you don't want to go all in, you know, with a type of hobby or craft or DIY, whatever you want to call it, then that makes sense. And I have come to realize through looking up the definition, matter of fact, let me look it up real quick. Let me just read it off for you. Let's see here. All right. Okay, so I'm going to read a hobbyist first, right? A hobbyist is a person who regularly or occasionally engages in an activity as pastime rather than as a profession. Synonyms are amateur, dabbler, and so on and so forth, right? Whereas the definition of a DIYer is the activity of decorating, building, and making repairs at home by oneself rather than employing a professional. And then in quotations, there's a statement. This is just on a simple Bing search. DIY avoids the difficult relationship between householder and the professional decorator. So for myself personally, I would place myself squarely in the category of DIYer because of the fact, the reason why I DIY is not, I'm trying to make it something that's fun for me. I'm trying to make it something that's exciting for me and getting myself motivated for it. But I'm a DIYer because I want to save money, because I don't want to pay someone else to do something for me that I can learn to do for myself. And, you know, while, I mean, it is what it is. It's, you know, I'll give a perfect example, right? My wife, she bought, we homeschool, my wife bought a cutter, and she uses it to cut books or whatever and preparing, you know, lesson plans, so on and so forth, right? And it broke. And she was able to, you know, go in and try to and fix that device on her own, you know. And she also has a serger machine. And just recently, you know, after fairly light use, it actually, you know, stopped working. And I want to say she paid, you know, under $300 for this serger machine. The serger is like a sewing machine type of device. And when she reached out to try to find a professional to possibly repair it, the starting price for repair is $200, which means it can go up from there. All right. And you see, it's one thing if you paid, say, several $1,000s for something and it's $200 minimum to fix it. But if you pay $300 for something, it makes 0 sense to pay, in my opinion, $200 to fix it. So that makes that item, you know, essentially like disposable. Many things that we buy, i.e. my dining room table downstairs that I bought from IKEA, it is a disposable piece of table. You know, it is not meant to, if you get dings or scratches in it, to be able to be sanded down and refinished. No, once you get dings and nicks in it, maybe you could get up there with some kind of a dark marker or whatever color marker to kind of hide it. But basically, it's on its way out. Same thing, if you over tighten a bolt, there's no repairing, you know, pressed fiberboard or pressed wood or whatever the heck the material is. But you see, back in the day, they would sell you stuff like that, and you would be like, you know, it would be cheaper. You know, they'd be like, this is cheaper than wood. But over time, you know, things go up in price. And so as a result, now you're paying what you would have paid a long time ago for real wood, for fake wood, for laminate. And, you know, that's fine. But the reality is there's no repairability, right? So if there's no repairability, if there's, you know, so you're spending top dollar for something that is going to fail you at some point in time. So for myself personally, I would rather take the money that can produce a table, that can make a table or make a piece of furniture, go buy that technology and then learn the process. It may be ugly furniture, it may be ugly, it may not, you know, whatever, it may not be square. But over time, if somebody else learned it, I can learn it over time. I mean, what else am I going to do with my free time? I mean, you know, I could be doing something that's constructive and productive, or I could be doing something that's destructive. So I'm going to do something that's constructive and productive. And one of those things is to purchase tools. And then, you know, you start to learn, like, you know, some people kind of feel like, well, because they'll judge you as a hobbyist, right? From the outside, they'll judge you as a hobbyist and be like, it doesn't make sense to spend this much money on this or that and the other. But then if you talk to, let's say, a professional businessman, a professional contractor, whatever they may be, if that professional, why do they buy the best? Why do they buy top tools? Because it makes their job easier. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you think the job needs to be easier for the professional or for the person that hardly does it? Well, technically, you will want it to be easier for the person that hardly does it. However, you got to pay that premium price. You got to pay that professional price, because anything that's business-like, even a simple subscription to, what is it called? Office 365. You've got the personal account and then you've got the business account. And if you go and look at them, the business account, the one that you can use to make money with, is more expensive than the consumer account. And that's the way it is. Business tools are more expensive than consumer tools, but consumer tools, in certain aspects, if you try to use consumer tools as if it's a business, and what I mean by that, I'm not talking about circumventing any kind of laws or rules or anything like that. What I'm talking about is if, say for instance, you decided to go buy a Ryobi drill and you're like, I'm going to put in a deck like a construction worker, and it fails on you. Well, it's really not meant for that. It's not built for that. It's built for smaller projects. It's built for, every now and then. It's not built, when you think about, whether it be a DeWalt tool or even a Milwaukee tool or a Fest tool or a Makita. These tools have like 3 and 5 year warranties, but that's under construction, under a construction usage, right? That is not for under like DIY work. The Ryobi is a 3 year warranty, but that's like for DIY stuff. That's not for you're gonna take this to the job and you're gonna go build a tower or a building down the road. It's not for that. It's not gonna last, And if you think that I'm misrepresenting that, if you look at a tool, I want to say, I may be misquoting on this, but I'm trying. You know what I'm saying? I'm not. These are just things. Sometimes I don't retain everything directly in my brain, and I'm not reading anything. I'm just going off the top of my head. But I was looking up the Powermatic, and I'm going to talk about that for another reason, maybe at another time. But I was looking at the Powermatic jointer, and I was reading the warranty information on some of these products, and they'll say 5 year warranty. However, if you use it for construction purposes or for production purposes, that warranty can shrink all the way down to like 90 days or a year or something like that. So that lets you know that when you're doing something in a production manner, it's taking more abuse and the warranty shrinks. When you buy a DeWalt tool, when you buy a Milwaukee tool, when you buy even a Fest tool, which I wouldn't necessarily put in the same class as a DeWalt and Milwaukee when you start talking about heavy duty ruggedness. These tools are meant to be used on the job. So it doesn't matter if you was up on a skyscraper and it drops off, I'm being ridiculous here, but basically what it means is if you had to put in 5 million bolts and it's under that 3 year warranty, they're going to do something for you. The Ryobi's not meant for that. It's just not meant for that. It's not built for that. Yes, it has a 3 year warranty and it looks great, but that's a 3 year warranty for a consumer, not a 3 year warranty for someone that decides, like myself, oh, you know what? I want to learn how to build a wall. I want to learn how to lay tile. I want to learn how to, do all of these things. And I want to learn how to do it like a professional would do it. I don't want to just stay on a DIY level. I want to basically teach myself how to be a tradesman for myself, for my family, so to speak. It does, it gives me something to do, and it also, it's a skill that if I learn it, I could actually hand that skill down to, my kids or to their kids if I learn it and I learn it right, which, crack a book, read, practice, so on and so forth. Now, what I went to college for, what I do for 40 hours a week, 52 weeks out of the year minus vacation, I can't hand that to my kids. They have to go to college to get that education. And that's one of the things that I'm realizing. Think about it. Right now, we have this whole thing. We call it a gig economy where people have to do all kinds of different things to try to make a living. You go to the grocery store, the prices are going up. Everything is getting more and more expensive. And so, it just seems more valuable to me for a person to figure out how to minimize costs, right? And then also how to maximize opportunity. If I learn how to do something like let's say I teach myself how to make a bookcase, a simple bookcase, that's all. If I teach myself how to do that, and say I go to a swap meet or something like that, paying all my legal fees and doing what I'm supposed to do, someone may say, hey, I like that bookcase. and I'll buy it from you. Well, now I've brought an income, another income not connected to my day job, into my home, and that's something that I'm building on. You know, the only way I can see a person, especially a person that actually has a business, speaking negatively or adversely about someone that decides to take the initiative for themselves to learn things is simply a mindset of, this is one less person that I can charge. You know what I'm saying? This is one less person that I can actually get to pay the price that I want them to pay. Now, you know, let me put on my hat. Let me put on my construction hat, right? And let's say I'm a contractor, right? If I'm a contractor and I'm up on my books, I know how many jobs I need to do or how much money I need to make in order to pay for my lifestyle, right? And let's say all year long I've been struggling and not getting those numbers up to where they need to be, to where I start to go in debt as opposed to be on the positive. Well, at the end of the year, if I'm a contractor, I may not give people at the end of the year, when I'm short, the type of deal that I would want. You know what I'm saying? I may have to start to up them charges, up them prices, so that I can make up for my lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? Well, I work a 9 to 5. So since I work a 9 to 5, I need to live within my means. Right? When you're an entrepreneur, when you are an individual contractor, you know what I'm saying? It's like, I mean, and I've heard people here on this platform, on YouTube, where people would be like, oh yeah, you know, I bid this tool into the job. Think about that. And I can't remember exactly who it was. I ain't name calling or nothing like that, but it was like, I think at the time I was researching the Zeta P2, which is a $1,700 joinery device, right? And the person was like, I was able to get this. So if I was a customer, I paid for that person's Zeta P2 when I could have bought it for myself. And possibly, if with a little bit of elbow grease, I could have done the job for myself. It may not have looked as good, but I could have had that tool. And then, you know what I could have did? I could have helped my neighbor do it too. I could have helped, you know, my sister or my brother or my mother or whoever else. You know, I could help them do it. So it's all in how you look at this life and how you look at things. You know, most people, when I walk outside of my house, are not lined up trying to give me stuff, right? They're not trying to give me nothing. They're trying to take. They're trying to take whatever I work for. They're trying to take whatever, you know, if I have energy in my body to work, okay, can we get that? People are trying to extrapolate, you know, and when you live on this earth, you know, you have to be a producer. You can't just be, you know, well, in my mind, in my book, you have to be some form of a producer, whether you go to school and get an education and you work and that's how you produce and you earn a living, or, you know, maybe you're an entrepreneur and you do things all on your own. You know what I'm saying? Whatever it is. But the bottom line is, for myself, I have learned through different experiences, through different trials, through different, and let me tell you something. I can talk. I can talk a lot. Just ask my wife. I can talk a lot. And I have experience after experience after experience. You know, I recently posted a video about where the drive shaft actually fell out of my car on the way to work. And I did all the work myself. I came home, you know, I had the car towed, well, except for towing the car, I had the car towed, right? I already prepaid for that with my car insurance. So that gave me the ability to get the car towed back home. And then I called around, found the part, couldn't find the part at the dealership because my cars are too old. They didn't even have that. So I had to find a used dealer, or actually a salvage yard, to get the part. I went and paid for the part, brought the part home, installed the part in my car. And by the time I had done that, was around the same time that I would have gotten off from my regular work shift. So I missed one day of work. I think I posted in that video that the average cost for a drive shaft repair here where I'm living at is between $400 and $1,500. I paid $300 for that drive shaft, a used drive shaft for my car. Maybe I got screwed, maybe I didn't, I don't know. But the reality of the matter is, if a minimum price is $400 and the maximum price is $1,500 and I paid $300, I saved at least $100 and possibly $1,100. I missed one day of work And by the time I got off work, my car was fixed. Now you help me to understand here when you talk about professional, right? If your car breaks down today, right? And let's say it's a drive shaft for you just like it was for me. What are the chances that by the time you get off work, your car gonna be ready to go to work the next day? Because I DIY, mine was ready. And that's why I subscribe to that. That's why I don't call myself, I use the term inappropriately, hobbyist. I'm not a hobbyist. I'm a DIYer. And I don't just DIY, woodworking or auto mechanics. I DIY electronics. I DIY the yard. I DIY everything that is legal for me to DIY. I will go find out how to do it, and I will do it myself. And that's not because I'm against any professional or nothing like that. There are certain things out here in this world, like say for instance, if you go to buy a house, if you go to buy a car, or certain things like that, right? It's very different. Those experiences are uniquely different from going to Target, Walmart, Best Buy, whatever. What is the difference? The difference is if I walk into a Target, a Walmart, a Best Buy, and I see a product on the shelf, I can look down and I can see the price. And that's the price I'm gonna pay, and that's the price the person behind me is gonna pay, and the person in front of me is gonna pay, unless they have some kind of coupon or some kind of discount code. That's the price. When you go buy a car, when you go buy a house, and certain other things, all of these things are nuanced, right? So person A, because they're related to somebody, will get a hell of a deal. But person B, you're gonna get completely hosed. And it's not personal, it's that term. It's just business. My stepfather, he actually he worked on cars, right? Well, his dad was an auto mechanic by trade, and so he learned the trade from his father. And he just decided one day he didn't feel like changing the filter on his truck. I think it was a Ford F-150. And so he took it in to get it fixed, and the guy said, quoted the price to him. And my stepfather says, wow, that's kind of expensive price, what I'm saying, or whatever. And the guy says, oh yeah, it's because it's in a difficult location. And my stepfather says, so you mean right here up under this door, that's a difficult location? The guy told him to get out of there. The guy was like, get out of here. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Another example. My second example is I took my car to one of those oil changing places, and I remember I was just being lazy at that point in time. And then when it came around time to change oil again, because I change my oil about every 3,000 miles, I'm old school, and I went in to get my filter, and I had already broke my truck down at home, and I took my other car to go get the filter, so I knew what the filter was that came off, right? But I didn't remember from the previous time when I changed it, right? That's 6,000 miles ago. And so the guy at the auto, like an AutoZone or one of those little car places, he hands me the filter, and I look at it, I'm like, is this the right one? And he's like, yeah, that's the right one. And I had him show me the computer or whatever, and I got home and I put it up on there, and I realized the oil change place had put the wrong filter on my vehicle, which could have, destroyed my vehicle. And luckily I changed my oil, very frequently. I was able to avoid issue. Now, that's professional service that I paid for, and that's what I got in return, There was another occasion where I had a 1995 Mazda Miata that had sat in the garage for almost a year. And at this time, but my auto mechanic skills are evolving. They're not where they should be. They're evolving. So basically, this car had sat in the garage for like a year because I was out of state. And when I went back home and I got in it was backfiring. And I didn't even know how to diagnose that problem at that time. So I took it to the dealership, the Mazda dealership, because you hear about the dealership, right? And they put my car up on their machine and did their little run or whatever. and they told me that I needed an ignition coil, spark plug wires, and a spark plug. And they told me it's going to be $1,000. And I looked at them and I said, yeah, you can go ahead and pull my car down off that lift. I took my car home. I went to one of those auto parts stores and I looked up the parts, and the ignition coil was $400 and something, let's say $450, right? And then I ordered that because they didn't have it in stock. I ordered the spark plug wires and spark plugs right there, took those home. The ignition coil was supposed to come in a few days. It didn't show up. So I got antsy because, I had been out of town and I had just gone back, to my home state at that time, and that was the only car I had, so I was stuck at home until my car was fixed, right? So I got antsy because the part didn't come in on time, and I just threw those spark plug wires and the spark plugs on there. Car ran like a top. Drove it for another 5 years before I sold it. I remember some time later, not that long, I ended up driving by that dealership and it was closed. You see, integrity. Professionalism is great as long as it's attached to integrity. If it's not attached to integrity, and if that integrity is only available to certain people, I personally, if I can avoid it, I'm not paying for it. It's just that simple. And that's what has put me on this mission of DIY, of basically aggressively trying to figure out how to fix things, how to solve my own problems as much as I possibly can. That's just me, right? That's just the way it is. So anyways, wow, that was a long tirade. So I probably should just put this up as just, my DIY tirade. And I'm going to stop this here.